Tarsus 12 was not just another planet. It was a monster, a swirling world of violence, heat, and pain. The official charts called it a Class 0 Deathworld, the kind of place where no life should ever take root. Gravity there was twice what most species could handle. The air was toxic, the storms could melt steel, and the creatures that lived there didn't just survive. They hunted anything that moved. The Galactic Union had tried to study it before. They sent probes, drones, even elite soldiers from the best-known civilizations. Every mission ended the same way. Silence. Nothing came back but wreckage and death. Whispers about Tarsus 12 began to spread. Myths were born. Some called it cursed. Others said the planet itself was alive, defending its secrets. So when humanity stepped forward and said, "We'll go," the galaxy laughed. Not out of cruelty, but disbelief. It was suicide, they thought. Just another species trying to prove itself and ending up in a grave. But humanity was different. They came not with pride or arrogance, but with grit. At the head of the mission was Captain Mara Voss, a woman whose eyes held more fire than fear. She stood aboard the human dreadnought Valkyrie, staring down at the raging clouds of the planet. Below, the red lightning flashing across its surface painted her face in streaks of war. Behind her stood her team, a mix of hardened Marines, brilliant engineers, AI companions, and medical officers, each one trained, tested, and prepared for what was waiting below. They had seen the reports. They knew about the storms and the monsters and the broken ships. And still, not one of them turned back. As the final preparations began, Mara looked over her shoulder at her team and said 6 simple words that echoed through the ship. Let's prove them all wrong. In high orbit, several alien vessels drifted quietly, watching. The Varnak, who believed in strength through conquest. The Eldari, who worshipped balance and order. The Hrul, who hunted anything weaker than themselves. All of them had gathered to watch the human attempt. Not to help, but to witness the failure. They traded bets on how long the humans would last. Some said a day, others an hour. No one believed they'd make it through a week. On the main bridge of a Varnak battlecruiser, a scarred warlord snorted. "Fools," he muttered. "Let the world eat them." Back on the Valkyrie, the drop countdown began. The landing ship named Iron Will prepared for descent. Its hull was reinforced to withstand crushing force, its systems shielded against plasma bursts and radiation. As the engines roared to life, Mara stepped into her drop harness. The deck trembled, sirens wailed. Then, like a spear hurled by the gods, Iron Will plunged into the fury below. The descent was brutal. The heat of the atmosphere turned the sky, outside, into fire. Winds slammed against the ship like hammers. Bolts of plasma lightning struck again and again, shaking the walls. But the ship held. Piece by piece they punched through the chaos, diving lower and lower until the storm broke around them, and the land came into view. Tarsus 12 looked like a battlefield. Rivers of lava snaked between jagged mountains. Forests made of black iron, trees twisted under dark clouds. Something huge moved in the distance, too many legs and glowing eyes. Still, the ship touched down. Hard. The ground cracked under it, but the hull stayed strong. Inside, silence fell for a moment. Then Mara unstrapped, stepped to the main hatch and pressed it open. The air hissed with heat. Her boots hit the ground, and she looked out over the nightmare landscape. Behind her, her team filed out, weapons ready, scanners active. This wasn't a mission anymore. It was a declaration. Cameras from orbit watched the feed as a human voice transmitted a message across the stars. Landing complete. Base construction begins now. Humanity endures. Somewhere, on a distant alien station, the Varnak warlord narrowed his eyes. This wasn't what he expected, and Tarsus 12, the planet that killed everything, had just met something it hadn't seen before. Humanity. And humanity didn't scare easy. The moment the landing ship touched down on Tarsus 12, it felt like the planet itself was trying to throw them back into space. The Iron Will shuddered violently as it slammed against the rocky surface. Inside, Every metal plate groaned. Every panel lit up with warning signals, and the soldiers gripped their weapons tighter. Outside, the air was thick with a strange burning smell, like acid mixed with smoke. The heat was unbearable, pressing down on their armor and making every breath a struggle. Mara Voss could feel it in her bones. This planet was alive, angry, and ready to fight. But there was no turning back. The human team had a mission: to build a foothold, a place where humanity could survive and, if needed, fight. They had trained for months, preparing for every nightmare the galaxy warned them about, but nothing could have fully readied them for this. The landing zone was a narrow valley surrounded by jagged cliffs that cast long shadows even under the alien sun. Their first priority was to set up Outpost Aegis, an advanced base made of reinforced titanium domes designed to withstand the crushing gravity and brutal weather. The engineers moved quickly, deploying drones that unfolded machinery like giant metal spiders weaving a web of protection. Autonomous turrets rose from the ground, humming softly as their sensors scanned for threats. Heavy heat shields popped up around the perimeter, and underground bunkers were anchored deep into the crust to protect from acid rains and sudden quakes. The entire team worked like clockwork, their actions synchronized by years of training and trust. It was a race against time. Tarsus 12 storms could return at any moment, and the local wildlife was already watching. It didn't take long for the planet to send its first warning. Out in the distance, a deep roar shook the valley. Eyes like burning coals appeared between the blackened trees, reflecting the crimson sky. Something enormous was coming. The apex predator of Tarsus 12, known only from broken transmissions and second-hand reports, had decided to test the newcomers. The creature was bigger than any tank, covered in thick armored plates that looked like cracked obsidian. It moved silently, but the ground vibrated with each step. The humans had faced tough enemies before, but nothing like this. As it charged, the perimeter, the autonomous turrets fired a deadly barrage, lasers cutting through thick hides and plasma shells exploding on impact. But the beast didn't slow. It crashed through the defenses and smashed the outer walls, sending debris flying and alarms blaring. Mara was the first to react. Without hesitation, she grabbed her plasma blade, a weapon glowing with fierce energy, and charged into the fray. Her armor was battered and leaking coolant, but she moved with steady precision. Around her, the Marines followed, firing pulse rifles and grenades. The beast's jaws snapped inches from her face, its claws tearing at the ground where she had just stood. The fight was brutal and chaotic, each second stretched thin between pain and survival. When the dust finally settled, Mara stood panting, her armor scorched but intact. The beast lay dead, blood pooling beneath it like dark lava. The team cheered quietly, but the victory was heavy. This was only the beginning. The humans didn't waste time. They sent out the first broadcast, a message that would echo across the galaxy. Outpost Aegis operational, still standing. Humans welcomed the challenge. It was a defiant signal, a promise that humanity was not here to die quietly. The message reached distant worlds, and whispers of surprise spread through alien fleets. The Varnak commander on his warship frowned, his bets suddenly looking foolish. The Eldari murmured among themselves, reconsidering the humans' resolve. Even the Hrul, known for their savage hunts, paused their games. Back at the base, Mara gathered her team for a quick debrief. Everyone was exhausted but alert. The beast's attack was a harsh reminder that Tarsus 12 was no normal planet. It was a battlefield, a living nightmare. But it was also their home now. They would have to adapt fast, learn the land, understand its creatures, and find ways to turn the planet's dangers into strengths. Supplies were limited, and communication with Earth had a delay of several minutes, so every decision could mean life or death. Mara looked at the faces around her, tired, scarred, but unbroken. This was the human spirit in action. No matter how fierce the storm, no matter how monstrous the enemy, they would fight. That night, under a sky filled with violent storms and flashes of lightning, Mara stood outside the domes. The ground rumbled softly beneath her boots, and distant roars echoed like a reminder that the planet was watching. But she felt something else, too. A strange pride, the kind that grows when you face impossible odds and refuse to back down. She knew the galaxy was watching, waiting for them to fall. But Mara Voss and her team had made a choice. They had landed on a Deathworld, and they were going to prove everyone wrong by making it home. The days after the battle with the giant beast felt like a fragile calm before the storm. Outpost Aegis was alive with activity. Machines hummed, scanners blinked, and soldiers moved like shadows across the jagged terrain. Mara and her team knew the planet was far from done testing them. Every sensor beeped warnings of approaching storms and strange movements deep in the black forests. But they had something no one expected: human willpower. While other species might have fled or given up, the humans adapted. They studied the patterns of the violent weather, learned to predict when the acid rains would fall, and crafted new gear from the materials around them. Their engineers turned sharp black stones into strong alloys. Their medics learned to treat wounds with limited supplies, and their soldiers trained harder, faster, smarter. The planet was brutal, but so were the humans. One morning, as the red sun struggled to pierce the thick clouds, a new threat arrived from the sky. Alien ships, sleek, deadly, and unfamiliar, cut through the atmosphere, surrounding the outpost like vultures circling prey. The Varnic fleet had come to watch the humans fall for good. Their warships were armed with heavy plasma cannons and missile pods designed to pulverize entire cities. Mara stood on the observation deck, eyes sharp, heart pounding. She gave the order without hesitation. Battle stations, prepare to engage. The hum of the turrets grew louder. The crew rushed to their positions, and the ground shook as the alien ships unleashed their fury. The fight was chaos incarnate. Plasma beams tore. Through the air, explosions rocked the valley and thick smoke choked the sky. The humans' defenses were tested like never before. The auto turrets fired relentlessly, striking down smaller enemy fighters while human pilots took to the skies in agile fighters, dodging blasts and returning fire. Mara coordinated the defense with calm precision, barking orders that cut through the noise. Her voice was a lifeline. The Varnak's ships pressed forward, attempting to breach the outer defenses, but every attempt was met with fierce resistance. The humans weren't just fighting to survive. They were fighting to send a message. Amid the battle, Mara spotted a critical threat, a massive Varnak dreadnought larger than any ship she had seen, charging directly at the outpost's core power plant. If it hit, everything would be lost. Without hesitation, she led a squad of pilots and their fighters, weaving through heavy fire toward the dreadnought. The chase was intense, the enemy ship firing missiles that exploded like stars in the dark sky. But Mara's squad moved with skill, born of desperation, dodging and weaving, firing precision shots at weak points in the enemy's armor. Finally, Mara's fighter locked a plasma torpedo on the dreadnought's engines and launched. The explosion ripped through the enemy's ship, sending it spinning out of control and crashing into the mountains nearby. Back on the ground, the battle continued. Alien ground troops tried to breach the perimeter, but human Marines met them with grit and firepower. Close-quarters combat erupted beneath the black iron trees, the clash of blades and gunfire echoing in the storm. Even as the air crackled, with danger, Mara pushed her team harder, reminding them that their survival meant everything. The Varnik underestimated the humans' endurance and heart. Finally, after hours of fighting, the alien ships began to retreat. The outpost had held. Damage was heavy, structures were scarred, lives lost, but the human flag still flew high. Mara gathered her team amid the smoke and debris, her voice steady despite exhaustion. This is just the beginning. They came to break us, but they only made us stronger. Around her, the team nodded, eyes fierce with determination. The battle had changed something fundamental. Now every species watching knew humans weren't just survivors. They were warriors, but victory came with a price. The outpost's communications array had been damaged in the fight, cutting off their contact with Earth and other colonies. Supplies were running low and the storms were growing worse. Mara realized the fight for Tarsus 12 would be long and brutal. Still, as she looked at her team, Scarred, tired, but unbowed, she knew they would endure. They were more than flesh and blood. They were the spark that could light the darkest void. And on this savage death world, humanity had made its stand. The nights on Tarsus 12 grew colder and darker, and the alien storms became more violent. The sky, once a dull red, was now a swirling mass of black clouds pierced by sharp bolts of lightning. The howling winds tore at the outposts' battered walls, and the acid rain sizzled as they struck metal and flesh alike. Despite the dangers, the humans pressed on. Mara knew that survival alone wouldn't be enough. They had to understand the planet to control it. So she led expeditions into the wilds, deeper than anyone had dared before, determined to find the secrets hidden beneath Tarsus 12's savage surface. Every step beyond the safety of the outpost was a fight against nature itself. The ground shook with tremors. Strange creatures watched silently from the shadows, and the air was thick with unseen poisons. Still, Mara's team moved forward, scanning, mapping, learning. On one such mission, they stumbled upon an ancient structure buried under layers of black rock and vines. It was unlike anything they had seen. Massive stone pillars etched with strange symbols that pulsed faintly with energy. The ruins spoke of a forgotten civilization, one that had lived and fought on this harsh world long before the humans arrived. Excitement mixed with caution as they explored. The discovery promised answers, but also danger. The team found devices that emitted strange waves and traps that nearly cost them their lives. Mara realized the planet was alive, not just in nature, but in the memories buried beneath its soil. These ruins held power, and whoever controlled that power could command the death world itself. Back at the outpost, engineers worked feverishly to repair the communications array. Every broken wire, every damaged circuit was a lifeline back to Earth and the other colonies. The loss of contact weighed heavily on the team. Without support, every resource was precious, and every decision was a gamble. Mara held meetings, listening to her officers' worries and hopes. Morale was fragile but unbroken. The team shared stories of home, of loved ones waiting light years away, fueling their resolve. In those moments, humanity's greatest strength shone. Not just their weapons or technology, but their hearts. They fought not just for survival, but for a future. Meanwhile, the alien threat was far from finished. Scouts reported new enemy. Patrols closing in, faster and more aggressive than before. The Varnak had sent reinforcements, determined to wipe out the human foothold before it could grow stronger. Mara knew that waiting for the enemy to strike first meant certain death. She planned a bold counterattack, aiming to disrupt the Varnak's supply lines deep within the dense forests. Using guerrilla tactics and stealth, the humans struck swiftly, hitting enemy convoys and slipping away before reinforcements could arrive. Each successful raid was a blow to the enemy's confidence and a boost to the humans' morale. The alien, warships above may have had more firepower, but on the ground the humans had something far deadlier, cunning and heart. The battles were fierce and personal. Mara found herself face to face with enemy commanders in firefights where every bullet counted. She saw comrades fall and rise again, their spirits never breaking even under the worst wounds. One night, during a particularly brutal skirmish, Mara was trapped behind enemy lines. The cold seeped through her armor as she crawled through thick underbrush. Every sound amplified in the silence. She fought through exhaustion, using every trick she had learned to evade capture. When she finally rejoined her squad, her eyes burned with a fierce determination that inspired everyone. This was no longer just a fight for land. It was a fight for their very souls. As the weeks passed, the humans learned to harness the death world's dangers. They built shelters that could withstand the storms, crafted weapons from the planet's unique minerals, and even tamed some of the smaller creatures as scouts and guards. Mara's team became a family bound by shared hardship and hope. The planet that was meant to kill them slowly became a place they could call home. Their broadcasts began to change tone, from desperate pleas for help to confident declarations of strength. The galaxy was watching, and humanity was sending a clear message. They were here to stay, no matter the cost. The turning point came when the humans captured a Varnak supply ship that had crash-landed in the forest. Inside, they found not only weapons and technology, but also data revealing the enemy's plans and weaknesses. Mara pored over the information with her officers, crafting strategies that would level the playing field. They prepared for the battles ahead with renewed vigor. The Deathworld was no longer just a prison, it was a proving ground. Humanity had arrived as underdogs, but they were becoming legends. One cold dawn, as the storm clouds parted for the first time in weeks, Mara stood atop a ridge overlooking the outpost. The battered but resilient settlement lay beneath her, a beacon of human will against an unforgiving world. The horizon was alive with the hum of approaching ships. Friend or foe, she could not yet tell. But Mara smiled, her heart steady. Whatever came next, humanity would face it head-on. The Deathworld had not broken them. Instead, it had forged them into something greater, a force the galaxy had never seen before. The dawn broke with an uneasy silence that settled over Outpost Aegis, the horizon still smudged with smoke and the fading glow of distant fires. The humans had grown stronger, their defenses sharper, and their resolve deeper, but Mara knew the real test was yet to come. Intelligence gathered from the captured Varnak ship revealed a massive fleet gathering in the nearby star system, poised for a full-scale assault to crush the human foothold once and for all. The enemy wasn't sending just scouts or raiders this time. They were bringing their entire might, determined to wipe out the humans from Tarsus 12. Mara stood on the command deck, her eyes fixed on the holographic star map flickering before her, each blinking dot a deadly threat racing closer. The weight of command pressed heavy on her shoulders, but inside her burned a fierce fire. Failure wasn't an option, not after all they had endured. The next hours were a whirlwind of preparation. The outpost defenses were reinforced, new barricades raised, and battle stations manned with grim determination. Engineers worked alongside soldiers, patching hull breaches and recalibrating energy shields. Every available fighter was fueled and armed, ready to take to the skies in the desperate fight ahead. Mara moved through the camp like a storm herself, checking on squads, delivering orders, and offering words of encouragement that lit sparks of hope in weary eyes. She gathered her closest officers for a final briefing. The plan was bold but clear. Intercept the Varnak fleet before it could reach the EO outpost, hit their command ships hard, and disrupt their attack. It was a gamble, but the humans had learned to thrive on risk. As the enemy fleet emerged from the dark clouds of space, the battle began with a deafening roar. Explosions lit up the void, plasma beams sliced through the cold night, and starships danced in deadly choreography. Mara's fighter squadron soared into the fray, weaving through enemy fire with practiced skill. The humans fought with a ferocity that surprised even the most battle-hardened Varnak commanders. Every human pilot seemed to have a sixth sense, anticipating enemy moves, striking where it hurt most, and never giving an inch. Mara herself led several daring strikes against the Varnak's heavy cruisers, using hit-and-run tactics to disable their weapons and engines. The sky was a chaotic storm of destruction, but through it all the humans held their ground. On the planet below, the outpost braced for the inevitable ground invasion. Alien troops poured down in dropships, eager to overwhelm the defenders with sheer numbers. But Mara's Marines were ready. They fought with unyielding courage, using the twisted terrain to their advantage. The dense black forests became deadly, mazes where humans struck unseen, then vanished into the shadows. Explosions rocked the battlefield, gunfire echoed through the trees, and every inch of ground was paid for in sweat and blood. The human soldiers were battered and exhausted, but their spirits never broke. They fought not just for survival, but for the right to call this hostile world home. Amid the chaos, Mara faced a moment that would define her leadership. During a fierce skirmish, a squad she had personally led was cut off and surrounded by enemy forces. The Varnak commanders believed they had the humans trapped, ready to crush the last resistance. But Mara refused to surrender. Rallying every ounce of strength, she orchestrated a desperate rescue, calling in air support and leading a counterattack that shattered the enemy lines. The rescue was brutal and costly. but it sent a clear message: humans would never be cornered without a fight. Her soldiers saw their leader's courage firsthand, their loyalty deepening with every victory and sacrifice. As the battle raged, unexpected allies appeared. A previously unknown alien species, the Solari, arrived in sleek ships, joining the humans in the fight against the Varnak. Their technology was advanced, their weapons precise, and their motives mysterious. Mara was cautious but welcomed the help. The Solari brought a new edge to the battle, turning the tide in favor of the humans. Together, they pushed the Varnak fleet back, forcing enemy ships to retreat into the dark void of space. The ground battle followed, with the combined forces clearing the last enemy pockets in brutal close combat. When the dust finally settled, Outpost Aegis stood battered but unbroken. The victory was hard won, the cost heavy, but the message was clear to every corner of the galaxy: humans were a force to be reckoned with. Mara looked over her team, wounded, weary, but alive, and felt a deep pride. They had survived the impossible and carved out a place in the stars. The Deathworld had not defeated them, it had made them stronger. But Mara also knew the war was far from over. The galaxy was watching, and soon, all would learn what it truly meant to face humanity on their home ground. After the fierce battle that had nearly torn Outpost Aegis apart, the humans found a brief moment of calm to catch their breath and tend to the wounded. The scars of war were visible everywhere. Craters marked the landscape, twisted metal lay, scattered like broken toys, and the air still smelled of burning fuel and ozone. Yet beneath the devastation, a quiet hope stirred. The humans had survived an assault that many thought would end them, and their spirit burned brighter than ever. Mara moved through the camp, checking on her soldiers and engineers, each face telling a story of hardship and determination. They were tired, yes, but they were not defeated. The knowledge that they had repelled the Varnak's might only deepened their resolve. But even as they repaired and regrouped, Mara knew that the real challenge was just beginning. The data recovered from the enemy's damaged ships had revealed something startling. The Varnak were not just attacking to eliminate humans. They were hunting for a powerful resource hidden deep beneath the planet's surface. This resource, the Varnak believed, could shift the balance of power across the galaxy, an energy source unlike any other, buried in the hostile heart of Tarsus 12. If the Varnak succeeded in finding and controlling it, no colony would be safe. Mara realized that defending the outpost was only the first step. To protect humanity's future, they had to uncover the secrets of this death world before their enemies did. She assembled a team of scientists, explorers, and soldiers for a new mission, one that would take them far beyond the familiar dangers of the surface and into the planet's darkest depths. The expedition plunged into vast underground caverns that twisted beneath the mountains, places untouched by light and full of unknown threats. The air was thick and damp, and strange sounds echoed from the shadows. The team moved cautiously, their suits and scanners fighting against the oppressive darkness. Every step deeper revealed signs of the ancient civilization that had once thrived. Here, vast tunnels, crumbling walls etched with glowing symbols, and machines that hummed faintly with forgotten power. Yet the deeper they went, the more dangerous it became. The caverns were alive with predators unlike anything humans had seen. Massive insectoid creatures with razor-sharp mandibles, venomous plants that could paralyze with a touch, and strange energy fields that scrambled their equipment. Mara's team relied on their training and each other's strength to survive, pushing forward through exhaustion and fear. Tensions grew as the expedition faced constant peril. Arguments flared over the best way forward, and some members questioned the risk, fearing they were walking into a trap. Mara kept the group focused, reminding them of what was at stake. Each obstacle only made their goal clearer: to find the energy source before the Varnak could claim it. Days turned into weeks as they navigated the labyrinthine tunnels, their supplies dwindling but their determination unwavering. When they finally reached a vast chamber filled with pulsating crystals of pure energy, the team was awestruck. This was the prize the Varnak sought, a force so powerful it could fuel entire star systems or destroy them. But as they prepared to study and secure the crystals, Alarms blared throughout the cavern. The Varnak had tracked them down. A brutal battle erupted underground. The confined space made the fight chaotic and deadly. The Varnak forces were relentless, pushing to seize the crystals at any cost. Mara's team fought fiercely, using every weapon and tactic they had learned. The ancient tunnels shook with explosions, and the air filled with the sounds of gunfire and shouted commands. The humans had the advantage of fighting for survival on their terms, but the enemy was ruthless and well-equipped. Amid the fighting, a vital energy conduit was damaged, threatening to destabilize the entire chamber and trigger a catastrophic explosion. Mara ordered a daring evacuation, directing her team to pull back while she stayed behind to initiate emergency shutdown protocols. The seconds stretched into an eternity as she worked, heart-pounding, knowing failure meant not just death, but the destruction of the energy source itself. With the last system secured, Mara barely escaped as the cavern sealed behind her. The tunnel collapsing in a thunderous roar. The humans regrouped outside, battered but alive, with the energy crystals safely in their possession. The victory was bittersweet. They had survived, but the cost was heavy. Many were wounded, and the scars of the underground battle would not heal quickly. Still, the mission had changed everything. With the energy source now in human hands, the tide of the war shifted. The Varnak no longer had a simple foothold to attack. They faced a foe who had uncovered a power they barely understood but were determined to protect. As they returned to Outpost Aegis, Mara felt a renewed sense of purpose. Humanity had not only survived the Deathworld but had begun to master it, turning its greatest dangers into strengths. The alliance with the Solari grew stronger, their technology aiding in harnessing the crystal's power. Plans were made to build defenses and research stations to unlock the full potential of the energy. Yet Mara knew that this was only a beginning. The galaxy was vast, and many enemies would come seeking this newfound power. But no matter what lay ahead, humanity had proven something far greater than strength or weapons, their unbreakable will to survive, adapt, and fight for their place among the stars. After the fierce battle that had nearly torn Outpost Aegis apart, the humans found a brief moment of calm to catch their breath and tend to the wounded. The scars of war were visible everywhere. Craters marked the landscape, twisted metal lay, scattered like broken toys, and the air still smelled of burning fuel and ozone. Yet beneath the devastation, a quiet hope stirred. The humans had survived an assault that many thought would end them, and their spirit burned brighter than ever. Mara moved through the camp, checking on her soldiers and engineers, each face telling a story of hardship and determination. They were tired, yes, but they were not defeated. The knowledge that they had repelled the Varnak's might only deepened their resolve. But even as they repaired and regrouped, Mara knew that the real challenge was just beginning. The data recovered from the enemy's damaged ships had revealed something startling. The Varnak were not just attacking to eliminate humans. They were hunting for a powerful resource hidden deep beneath the planet's surface. This resource, the Varnak believed, could shift the balance of power across the galaxy, an energy source unlike any other, buried in the hostile heart of Tarsus 12. If the Varnak succeeded in finding and controlling it, no colony would be safe. Mara realized that defending the outpost was only the first step. To protect humanity's future, they had to uncover the secrets of this death world before their enemies did. She assembled a team of scientists, explorers, and soldiers for a new mission, one that would take them far beyond the familiar dangers of the surface and into the planet's darkest depths. The expedition plunged into vast underground caverns that twisted beneath the mountains, places untouched by light and full of unknown threats. The air was thick and damp, and strange sounds echoed from the shadows. The team moved cautiously, their suits and scanners fighting against the oppressive darkness. Every step deeper revealed signs of the ancient civilization that had once thrived. Here, vast tunnels, crumbling walls etched with glowing symbols, and machines that hummed faintly with forgotten power. Yet the deeper they went, the more dangerous it became. The caverns were alive with predators unlike anything humans had seen. Massive insectoid creatures with razor-sharp mandibles, venomous plants that could paralyze with a touch, and strange energy fields that scrambled their equipment. Mara's team relied on their training and each other's strength to survive, pushing forward through exhaustion and fear. Tensions grew as the expedition faced constant peril. Arguments flared over the best way forward, and some members questioned the risk, fearing they were walking into a trap. Mara kept the group focused, reminding them of what was at stake. Each obstacle only made their goal clearer: to find the energy source before the Varnak could claim it. Days turned into weeks as they navigated the labyrinthine tunnels, their supplies dwindling, but their determination unwavering. When they finally reached a vast chamber filled with pulsating crystals of pure energy, the team was awestruck. This was the prize the Varnak sought, a force so powerful it could fuel entire star systems, or destroy them. But as they prepared to study and secure the crystals, alarms blared throughout the cavern. The Varnak had tracked them down. A brutal battle erupted underground. The confined space made the fight chaotic and deadly. The Varnak forces were relentless, pushing to seize the crystals at any cost. Mara's team fought fiercely, using every weapon and tactic they had learned. The ancient tunnels shook with explosions, and the air filled with the sounds of gunfire and shouted commands. The humans had the advantage of fighting for survival on their terms, but the enemy was ruthless and well-equipped. Amid the fighting, a vital energy conduit was damaged, threatening to destabilize the entire chamber and trigger a catastrophic explosion. Mara ordered a daring evacuation, directing her team to pull back while she stayed behind to initiate emergency shutdown protocols. The seconds stretched into an eternity as she worked, heart pounding, knowing failure meant not just death but the destruction of the energy source itself. With the last system secured, Mara barely escaped as the cavern sealed behind her, the tunnel collapsing in a thunderous roar. The humans regrouped outside, battered but alive, with the energy crystals safely in their possession. The victory was bittersweet. They had survived, but the cost was heavy. Many were wounded, and the scars of the underground battle would not heal quickly. Still, the mission had changed everything. With the energy source now in human hands, the tide of the war shifted. The Varnak no longer had a simple foothold to attack. They faced a foe who had uncovered a power they barely understood but were determined to protect. As they returned to Outpost Aegis, Mara felt a renewed sense of purpose. Humanity had not only survived the Deathworld but had begun to master it, turning its greatest dangers into strengths. The alliance with the Solari grew stronger, their technology aiding in harnessing the crystal's power. Plans were made to build defenses and research stations to unlock the full potential of the energy. Yet Mara knew that this was only a beginning. The galaxy was vast, and many enemies would come seeking this newfound power. But no matter what lay ahead, humanity had proven something far greater than strength or weapons: their unbreakable will to survive, adapt, and fight for their place among the stars. The battle had ended, but the weight of what had been lost pressed heavily on everyone. The silence after the storm was filled with the quiet hum of repair crews working tirelessly to restore the battered ships and shattered outpost. Mara walked. Among her people, her steps slow but steady, taking in the faces of soldiers, engineers, and scientists, each marked by exhaustion but also a fierce pride. They had faced overwhelming odds, stared down destruction, and yet here they were. Their home, the so-called Class Zero Deathworld that others had dismissed, had become a symbol of humanity's strength and resilience. Mara knew that this victory was more than just a battle won. It was a message to the galaxy. Humans were not weak, not helpless, and certainly not to be underestimated. In the weeks that followed, the people of Tarsus 12 worked together to rebuild. The Solari allies offered their technology and knowledge, helping to transform the rugged colony into a stronghold, ready for any future threat. Scientists studied the mysterious energy crystals, learning how to harness their power to improve defenses, create new weapons, and even heal wounds faster. Soldiers trained harder, preparing for the possibility that the Varnak or other enemies might return. There was no celebration in the traditional sense. The price of victory was too high. But a quiet confidence settled among the colonists, a sense of purpose that pushed them forward despite the scars they carried. Mara found herself often standing at the edge of the settlement, looking out at the wild landscape that had once seemed so hostile. Now it felt like home, not just a place to survive, but a place to live, to fight for, and to protect. The black forests, the jagged mountains, and even the dangerous wildlife were part of their story now. She remembered the early days when many thought the planet would be a death sentence. Yet humans had adapted, learned, and thrived. The very things that made Tarsus 12 dangerous had become their greatest strengths. Mara felt a deep respect for her people, their courage, their will, and their unbreakable spirit. The galaxy around them was still watching. Word of the battle and humanity's unexpected victory spread quickly through the stars. Some factions, once dismissive or even hostile, began to reconsider their stance toward humans. Diplomats reached out, seeking alliances or at least peace. But Mara and the leaders of humanity knew that trust was earned through action, not words. They prepared for what might come next, understanding that the war was far from over. The universe was vast and full of dangers, but humanity had proven they could face them head-on. This new chapter was only the beginning of a long, hard journey among the stars. In the quiet moments, Mara thought of those who had given everything, friends lost in battle, sacrifices made in the dark tunnels beneath the surface, and the weight of command that rested on her shoulders. Their memories were a reminder of why they fought, not just for survival, but for hope and the future. Mara vowed to honor them by leading her people with strength and wisdom, ensuring that their hard-won home would remain a beacon of resilience in a galaxy that had once written them off. The story of humans on Tarsus 12 was no longer one of weakness or fear. It was a tale of triumph, courage, and a fierce love for a world that no longer seemed like a death sentence but a new beginning.